We are going to go into our main presentation today. We've talked to all of you individually or in these webinar settings about voting your values and proxy voting, and we're bringing on As You Vote, which is a combination service between As You Sow and Iconic, and they're offering a service where you can sign up with them and your proxies can be voted according to the outlines of As You Sow, which is one of my favorite organizations and does a lot of incredibly good work on your behalf as stock owners, and in alliance with a lot of the funds that we use. As You Sow gets a lot of things done behind the scenes and in the boardrooms and in shareholder votes. And I'm going to leave it at that so that we can hand off to Andy Bear from As You Sow.
So As You Sow is a 501c3. We're a nonprofit. We've been around since 1992, so it's our 31st year. And we focus on corporate accountability through the lens of shareholders. So As You Sow does a great deal of research. We publish about 10 original reports every year on coming out with one, I believe, next week on net zero, linking executive compensation to emissions reduction. We'll be coming out with one in a few weeks on plastics, and one on pesticides, regenerative ag, racial justice and diversity, equity, inclusion. We have a very big report coming out in November, linking diversity in the workforce to performance on 14 key financial metrics. So we use all this data to engage corporations as shareholders. So we represent shareholders, and so folks, they authorize us to file on their behalf, and we sit down with the companies. We send them a letter, we sit down, and we say, look, we have found ways for this company to improve, to reduce material risk for all stakeholders. And those generally lead to either the company agreeing to our terms or to us filing a shareholder resolution. And I'll get into a little more detail about that. So why proxy voting matters. So last year we filed 111 shareholder resolutions. And those are really putting forth an idea for all shareholders to discuss and then to vote on at the annual meeting, or to vote on their proxy that gets tallied at the annual meeting. And so what this has to do with is, well, really engagement is about how do you get a company to look at a worldview a little differently, to look at our data and to say, yeah, we could become a better company. And that has a great deal of impact because it leads to a shift in the company's, both their policies, but really their practices. And so it gives shareholders this influence, which is really our legal right. So shareholders have the right to discuss, to engage companies on issues that are material, which means financial. So what we developed is we've always had a set of policies, how we believe you should vote. You should vote for this resolution on climate. If the CEO is making too much money, you should vote against say on pay. You should vote against the compensation committee of the board. All these things were written down as rules. About 3.5, 4 years ago, we decided to make it actionable. And so we created As You Vote. And it's a rules-based engine. We sit on the Iconic platform, and Alex will discuss that in a minute. But basically, it takes our ideas and turns them into actions. And it's different than some of the traditional proxy voting advisors because it's a rules-based engine. And it allows you to basically to vote aligned with our policy. Our policy is what gets voted, but you also will have the option to go in and customize. So this reflects 30 years of expertise. As I mentioned, we've been around since 1992. I'll go kind of rapidly through these. So this just shows we had 210 engagements. That means we sat down with 210 companies. 99 of those said, thank you. You guys are like McKinsey for free. Let's go get this done. Let's become a better company. 111, we filed shareholder resolutions. Now, once we filed the resolution, 53 of those companies said, you know what, we'll agree to do what you want. And so you can withdraw. And we did. And so you can see 48 went to a vote. We ended up getting about 1.94, almost $2 trillion of assets voted yes on our resolutions. And you can see that wheel shows you the pie chart, the different areas that we file resolutions in. But we understand all the kinds of resolutions that get filed. So these are the in 2023 ESG shareholder resolutions. You can see climate change, political influence, human rights, decent work, these are all the different types of things that we deal with, everything down to, board structure, diversity at work, racial justice, and those sorts of things. We recently had 10 majority votes. Some of the biggest ones, Caterpillar was a 97% vote, Cisco 92. You can see when you get a majority vote, these are non-binding. So even if you get a majority, the company doesn't have to do it. But if they don't, that means that the board of directors is not doing proper oversight. Remember, the board reports to you. If you're the shareholder, the board reports to you. Most people don't realize that. When we go and we sat down with Kat and said, look, 97% of people, shareholders, want this to happen, want you to have a climate transition plan. And Caterpillar said, I don't think so. Well, what happened is we escalated, we changed out some people on the board. So we can run board slates and we can get the votes to actually replace people on the board. We also escalate into what are called shareholder derivative actions, which means we represent the company and we sue our own board for breach of fiduciary duty. We're involved with 4 of those right now. So there's a company called ISS, Institutional Shareholder Services, and they have a policy called ISS SRI that most people consider to be very ESG aligned. But when you look at our voting policy and their voting policy side by side, you'll see that they approve 80% of CEO pay packages, whereas As You Sow votes against 80% of those pay packages. So again, they vote for 80%, we vote against 80%. Boards of directors, they vote for 70%, we vote against 70%. So there are very big differences. And most of the shareholder resolutions, the pro ESG ones, we vote for almost all of them. They vote for about 80%. And then there's anti-ESG resolutions. Those are resolutions that look like a regular resolution, but they're actually from these far right-wing folks who, like, for instance, we file a racial justice resolution talking about systemic risk of having a policy, a corporate policy that does not take into account racial justice, whereas they file resolutions saying white men are discriminated against. So there's a lot of nuance that you need to kind of understand what's going on. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex, and he can take you through Iconic, the Iconic platform, how that works, and kind of how we took our policy and embedded it within the platform. So Alex, why don't you go ahead?
Great. Yeah. Thanks for the intro, Andy, and thanks for having me on today. Yeah, so my name is Alex Thaler. I'm a CEO and co-founder of a company called Iconic, and basically we're a voting platform that helps advisors and their clients vote their shares to match their values. And I just want to actually pick up on one thing that Andy was saying about how he votes. That in my role, I've seen people sort of do voting in different ways. Some people do voting to sort of maximize returns. Some people do voting because they believe that it can build stronger companies. Personally, when I do voting for my own accounts, it's really just to align my investments with my values. I want the companies to take aggressive moves to decarbonize. I want them to do better on human rights. That's the way I do it. So I just want to sort of acknowledge that there are different sort of reasons why people might want to vote. So what we did at Iconic, we realized that proxy voting is often seems like a black box to a lot of people. And so what we did was we built a tool that we call Prism that compares a voting profile such as you vote with a fund's voting. And so in this case, I've compared As You Vote's voting profile to the Vanguard S&P, main Vanguard S&P 500 fund, and the sort of underlying collection of assets there is the S&P 500. So I'm going to go ahead and just sort of review this just to provide a little color here. We tracked 14 different areas. It's a rules-based engine. And if I open up independence, on the left, you can see As You Vote with the sort of blue squares there showing very strong support for independence of the board, right? Which is something that you want. You want the board members who report to you to be independent, to advocate for shareholders rather than, say, entrenched management. So you can see very, very different levels of support for these governance issues on the left versus Vanguard on the right. And just to highlight, this is based on actual votes that are publicly filed. They're filed in these reports called NPX reports. So we've gone to the SEC website, we pulled the NPX reports, and then sort of expanded this so you can see that for these different directors, you see very different voting patterns. Okay, I just want to sort of highlight a few others. Maybe we can do, I don't know, human rights. Just again highlighting, so As You Vote is going to support proposals for human rights nearly 100% of the time. Vanguard S&P is hovering at about 1 1/3%. If you're not voting your shares, someone else is voting them, and they're likely voting against your values. And so we track this for a couple different, 14 different areas, and I'm happy to sort of do a deeper dive on this with advisors, maybe offline. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and take a look at how this works and how you can sign up and have your shares voted according to As You Vote. So this is the landing page that we built for As You Vote. It's at iconicapp.com/asyousow. And I would recommend coming to this page. It's a great source of information here. You can look at their voting policy, and they have their sort of key topical areas here, and a lot of information. Did I mention that I vote my shares according to As You Vote? My personal shares, I vote according to As You Vote. They're the best at what best in the industry at doing this. So I definitely recommend coming here, take a look at the resources. They're fantastic. And when you're ready, all you do is click Get Started, and it'll take you through a process. And the point of this process is to create an account on our platform that stores your voting preferences. When you create the account, all it's going to do is sort of point to As You Vote's voting profile, which you can customize yourself if you like, and I can take you through that in a minute. So you would sort of go through here. You add an email address and a password. It's going to take you through a little authentication process so that we know that we're sending it to the right account. And then you're going to arrive at this page as the next step. And just notice something right here in the middle. It says, to vote your shares to match this voting profile, simply forward your shareholder election emails to, and then it gives you this unique forwarding address. So the core of our system right now for the general public is built on simple email forwarding. So you receive the proxy notices to your email. Some of you out there might be sort of pained by the volume of proxy notices that you get, and most people don't vote them, right? This is actually a studied academic phenomenon that they call rational apathy. If you receive 100 of these notices, it's actually really hard to vote them, right? Because you need to understand all the information in the ballots, and the proxy statements are 99 pages long, and no one has time to do that, which is the purpose of this service. So right now, once you've created the account, you can actually just forward them to your customized forwarding address. So it'll be different for you, right? This is just a sample account. It'll be different for you. You can forward them in there, and they will be automatically voted. You will get an email notification when they are voted. That'll show you how the votes are sort of playing out, and then you have an opportunity to revise or edit any votes you like. That's how the system works. What I would recommend is, if you do this process, you should take the next step and continue to create an automated email forwarding rule. So it takes about 5 minutes, and that means that any time that you get one of these proxy notices, it'll just send a copy over to your Iconic account to be automatically voted. So the way to do that is to go through what we call this little proxy wizard. So you go through. If you're receiving it, then you pick yes, and it'll ask you what your email provider is. So for example, I use Gmail, and then it basically teaches you how to create a forwarding rule, and it takes about 5 minutes. Once you've created that rule, you'll automatically send the proxy notices over to Iconic. So I'd like to show you what an Iconic account looks like that's been going on for a little while. So I've gotten permission from this person who's a shareholder activist. So I've gotten permission from him to show you his account. So this is an Iconic account that's been voting. It's 168 elections, and you can see some impact reporting already. This area is called Your Wins. So if you vote a certain way, and then that way actually comes to pass in the election, we throw it into Your Wins, and you can see that because Jim has voted in a certain way, he's been able to help pass these important shareholder rights proposals at these different companies. We also have Your Votes in Action. So this will be completely tailored to what's in your account and how if you've customized your voting in any way. Basically, this is a sort of nice histogram of votes across the different categories that we track. So for example, 217 votes for diversity on the board. If we click on that, it's going to go to our database and then pull the rules, the As You Vote rules. These are a little bit different from the As You Vote rules, but it'll pull the As You Vote rules that are underlying this data point here for those 217 votes. Okay, Andy mentioned you're able to customize. This is the area that you would be able to customize in. We call it VoteForge. So it's just a system of micro-adaptive surveys where you can indicate your preferences. So as you so has already configured this, so you can just follow them. But if you did need to customize in any particular area, you would just go in there, click on one of the categories, and then pick a different choice. And this is the rules-based engine. This is how you configure your voting rules, essentially. One other note, we also have sort of extensive default voting rules. So once you create your account, I'd recommend going in here and sort of checking to see how defaults are configured. You can automatically vote in support of certain shareholder proponents or against other ones. There's lots of different options here for configuring your voting preferences. And here's the fun part. So as the proxy notices come through the system, you can see them. In this case, this is an interesting case in which this investor happens to be voting in a fund that we've cracked open and allowed the investors to vote in that fund, which is unusual. And so you'll be able to go in here and see all of these sort of votes for and against different items. Shareholder proposals will tend to be at the bottom, and then the director elections will be at the top. And you can see for any one of these ballot items exactly why we're generating a vote for or against. And it's based on these voting rules. So in this case, for this director, it has to do with an independence question and the way that this user has configured that independence question. And then you can have multiple rules also that sort of generate a particular voting choice. And I think that's about it for now. But I'm happy to take any questions or if Andy wants to jump in.
Also, just so in case you are feeling a little overwhelmed, you can also just click on as you vote and you can set it and forget it. Like you just literally, we will vote every item on every ballot, every director, every auditor, every resolution. And you literally, it could be as simple as one click, or you can go and get into the weeds and configure it however you like. So it's really, that's the idea, is some people, right now, I think a lot of people are just not voting, and we're trying to get everybody onto the playing field because we need every vote. Because this year we've seen BlackRock back off. They used to support us significantly. This year they're against us 93% of the time. Vanguard votes against us 98% of the time. The asset managers are feeling very frightened by these attacks from Leonard Leo and the anti-ESG crusade. So we need to get everybody who's actually owning the shares to really express their voice. This is about your voice and about making it heard.
From SJK, are you saying one click means I don't have to forward the voting emails? So that for that part, I would advise to set up the email forwarding rule through the proxy wizard that I showed you. So if you go through the process starting at the As You Sow page that I shared, you create an account and then you create this forwarding rule, and then you don't have to worry about the forwarding individual notices anymore.
If you have a Gmail account, it's quite simple. So whoever's sending you the proxies, that's going to be a standard email. All of those will get forwarded into the Iconic system. They'll be automatically voted and automatically filled out and then voted. So once you set up that forwarding rule, then it just takes care of itself.
And Andy, when you go into a meeting with the board, do you have a count of these shareholders that are voting with you?
It generally works the other way around. So we, so as you saw, we write a report, then we send a letter to a company, we sit down with the company. As I said, 210 companies. We said, look, your racial justice score is a 9 and your direct competitor is a 14. Here's the 3 things they're doing you're not. And the 99 companies said, wow, thank you. You guys are like McKinsey for free. Let's go get busy. And we don't file a resolution. 111 did not say that. So we filed the resolution. And then 56 of those said, oh, now that you filed the resolution, we don't want everybody voting on this. We don't want this in the public eye. We'll agree. And then, so the ones who didn't do that, the ones who are the most obstinate, they're the ones that actually a vote gets voted and goes to a vote. And so those are the ones more, it's like after the annual meeting, we sit down with them and go, look, 37%, Citibank, 37% of your shareholders said that they think this is important. And that's when we say, that's when we've got 37% of, we got billions of dollars worth of shares behind us. We get a seat at the table. And so that's where it gets really important. The idea, knowing what we've done in the past, gets a lot of the companies to just agree to our terms before they don't even want to go to a vote.
Yeah, I just
There you
wanted
go.
to say that I really am excited to learn about both of your organizations. And I know I'm not the only person right now. You're speaking to some of us who have been engaged for the last 10 days in basically survival. And we can't take this information in right now. I mean, I want to take in every word you're saying, and you're talking as if like you have people on the other side who can take it all in. And I can tell you, I, for one, and I know a few other people on this call, can't take it in. And I think it's very important. So I'm going to recommend that Centered Wealth either do what Lion said, which is do it for us.
We'll follow up with a
We
very
assign-
simple recipe
Understood.
card.
Understood.
Yeah, you assign us something very simple and we're on the phone with you and we go through it step by step. Because, I'm not only tired and war-torn and freaked out, but I'm also 73 and I hate even entering passwords. So you're going to need to help us, even though I completely 100% support you. And I'm not speaking here with any disagreement. I want to do this and I want to tell everybody about you and I want to be on your team. You're going to help us. You have to help us get it.
We consider it part of our service to our clients to help you set this up, because this has been one of the things that has been difficult for clients to manage, and we haven't been able to vote on your behalf. And so this is a really important thing for us to help you set up. And I'm sure there are people at Iconic, and as you so, and Namita said we can reach out to her. And yeah, this is all nonprofit. There's no fee for this service, which is extraordinary and wonderful. And I'm incredibly grateful. And Janice, to your point, the only way I can get up in the morning is to know I'm doing some good work, because it's just not okay.
Well, this is about the most positive thing I've heard in the last 10 days. So from my point of view, I'm glad I didn't miss this call. And I really want to say thank you to your guests for doing what you're doing on behalf of all of us. And I will do all I can to spread the word, and you help us make it easy so that I don't have to say to them, oh, this is a great thing, I don't know how to help you.
Can I offer something there? So Stuart and Gina, maybe we could take it offline. There's a way to do it at NFS, your custodian, where the clients don't have to do email forwarding.
Oh, wow.
We would need a little assistance from you guys, but we can do it. And then it's just sort of press a button. You can turn on each client account who wants it.
Okay.
But maybe we could take it offline.
Yeah, let's discuss that.
I also wanted to just make everybody aware, and I think people largely know this, but in our model portfolios, we only buy mutual funds that have shareholder activism as part and parcel of the management's commitment. And Andy, I'm curious how you collaborate with some of these funds, whether it's Green Century or Parnassus or Domini or whatever. How do you guys work as a block in collaborating on shareholder resolutions?
So the asset managers, I mean, we brief them on all of our resolutions. We publish a publication every year called Proxy Preview that goes through not only our resolutions, but everyone's resolutions. So Trillium and Walden and all the faith-based groups. So there's a group called the Interfaith Center for Corporate Responsibility, which the Unitarians, the Catholics, the Jews, the Muslims, everybody's like, they all get together to coordinate what they're going to file, how they're going to file, and all that stuff. So it's a great deal of coordination within this community of shareholder advocacy. And then we go and we brief Parnassus and BlackRock and Vanguard and all the asset managers, as well as the proxy advisors, about why this is important, why this is going to make this a better company, why this is going to, the impact it's going to have on all stakeholders, including their employees, their customers, communities where they operate, their supply chains, how we can actually transition from an extractive economy to a regenerative economy based on justice and sustainability. we brief them all to try to, so that they will vote, vote in alignment with us. So there's a great deal of education involved in this. And so that's some part of what we do. We're funded by foundation grants and by individual donations. And that's just a big part of our staff's work is education.
Keith is asking what aggregate percentage of company shares are being voted through as you vote at most companies.
Well, so it's a complex question because the shares of companies are owned by both institutional investors, about 70% of shares roughly on average, institutional, which would be foundations and asset managers, and then individuals is about 30%, and that's retail. So we actually do both, but we only have a slice of the information because some of the shares are voted on a different voting platform. But what I will say is that, Andy, you mentioned this before, increasing that percentage even a tiny bit and sort of signaling shareholder collective action is a big deal for these companies. And they spend a lot of money to thwart shareholder activism that's basically intended to make them better companies. Like at Exxon, they spent $100 million to try to prevent 2 people getting seated on the board, which is ridiculous. So we need, the ability to form a shareholder block and do this together is very, very valuable in helping to nudge these companies along in the right direction.
This is the power of the fact that we are owners of the company, and voting the shares is, our duty and opportunity to nudge companies in the right direction.
And we are going to, we'll be sending out this video, and then we will also send out with that video instructions on how to get started and resources, people to contact for help, and get you on your way with this, because it's very, very important to us.
Yeah. And as Alex said, I mean, we've seen most of the resolutions are non-binding. Again, even if it's a majority, the company doesn't have to do it. But if you do get above a majority and the board takes no action, then you can really consider a no confidence vote in the board. Mm-hmm. Binding votes are board directors, and we've run board slates in the past. We've also negotiated with the company when we brought them a board slate. And in 2021, we put 3 people on the Exxon board. Last year, we put 2 people on the Caterpillar board. This is through very, back channel negotiations, but that's because they know we're going to get the votes. So it's a complex system, and particularly with mutual funds, and now mutual funds, people have always abdicated their right to vote. Most 401k plans, there's 100 million people with 10 trillion assets that have abdicated their right. And so we're trying to get that right back. We're trying to empower each individual and to give them a tool that they can do it with one click, because it's, in a target date fund, in a big mutual fund, you could have 1,000 companies, and each company's got 20 decisions to make. There's no way you're going to be able to figure out 20,000 decisions, but we figured out a way to do it. And it's from just, our experience and actually, working through the kind of the hard mechanics of the building that plumbing. So
Lion wants to know how we can support As You Sow and As You Vote, how to announce and promote and educate others.
So at asyousow.org, it's ASYOUSOW, as you sow, so shall ye reap, .org. You can find everything about our organization, all the reports that we write. If you sign up there, we will send you emails to invite you to the Net Zero. We do a webinar whenever we put out a new report, so you could attend the Net Zero. The one that's coming out in November, I'm really excited about, because we gathered 6,000 what are called EEO1 reports, Equal Employment Opportunity Reports. These are 6,000 reports that companies put out on the diversity of their workforce, and we have absolute statistical significance showing how greater diversity leads to financial outperformance. No one has seen this kind of data ever, and we're always doing these very innovative, original reports. We also have a tool called Invest Your Values at investyourvalues.org. It's also available on As You Sow. we analyze 3,000 mutual funds and we update it once a month. We believe data needs to be very, really updated and kept very fresh. So every month we update 3,000 mutual funds. We're going to be expanding that to 6,000 mutual funds in November. So we have a lot of different tools. So one way to support us would be to tell your friends to come to our site. If you sign up to get our newsletter and get invited to webinars, if you make a donation, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask, but we are a 501c3. It's a tax donation. And we really do rely on individuals who really support us. About 60 to 70% of our work is from foundation grants, and we write about 60 foundation grant proposals every year, and the rest is from individuals. So we just huge gratitude for anyone who would like to make a donation.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, please.
Do you work with donor
Advised funds, DAFs?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how the best way to introduce the donor advised fund that I work with.
Yes.
Maybe
we probably have half of our donations coming through DAFs from individuals. It's a great deal of them do.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, in fact, that kind of speaks to if you've got other pots of money elsewhere, a family trust or a family foundation or somewhere where you might not be able to influence the investment choices themselves, signing up for a service like this so that the proxy votes are being done in accordance to the family's values or your values is one way to not have to divest from positions that you might not agree with, but to actually utilize those positions. And in some cases, I know, Andy, you go out looking for people that have ownership of certain companies so that you can utilize that holding, correct?
Correct. If you own equities directly, we have a group we call it Activate Your Shares. It's got the same initials, AYS, and it's a network. There's probably about 70. We have endowments and asset owners and just individuals. And so we publish a list. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, we published our final list for the 2024 season of about 200 companies. We're looking for people who've owned these companies at least $2,000 worth for 3 years. And if you have, let's just say we're filing a resolution with McDonald's on styrofoam, and you owned McDonald's and you have for a couple of years, you could literally, it's one DocuSign, you authorize as you so to file on your behalf. We write the resolution, we vet it with SEC counsel, we send it to the company, if we have to, we engage the SEC. If they file a no action, we file an exempt solicitation, we do media, we go to the annual meeting, we send staff, and then we report back to you and we say, look, thank you, your shares enabled us to, and I'm giving you a real example, where we got McDonald's to stop using styrofoam worldwide. There's 1 billion styrofoam cups produced. That led to Dunkin' and Starbucks doing it. We ended up through that whole campaign, 3 billion styrofoam cups every year not being produced, which has a big impact on oil and gas production because those are the feedstocks for all that plastic. Somebody like you signed a piece of paper or signed a DocuSign that allowed us to just represent them when we sat down with the board of directors and made the case that this was going to be good for the brand. And they said they agreed and they did it. So yeah, so we do that all the time. If anyone's interested in that, Namita is on this call, you can just reach out to her and we can put you on that list and you can be part of that. Now we have, every time we do this, we have 1 lead filer and 3 co-filers. That sometimes the lead filer drops out. We have sort of backup. And then we also have people who sign a letter of support. So there's a couple of levels, if you want to be involved in that way.
Excellent. We are about out of time. We didn't get back to questions about portfolio changes, and I just would encourage any of you on the call to reach out to us directly if you've got questions. Talk to Luna and Hillary, and they can set up a time to talk to us. If you want a half hour to just go over what changes have been made, we're happy to do that with everybody. So I guess on that note, we are about done here.
Well, huge gratitude for inviting us. Thank you so much.